Let's
Let's do
let's
it.
let's crank this baby up. Here we go. How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the science of fantasy football. Why the science of fantasy football? You get a meteorologist and a biologist together. They're going to use the scientific method. What does that mean? Oh, I hear it every week, and you never really. Yes, we explain it every week as well. It just means we're going to let statistics guide us to an answer. We're not going to have an idea and then go back and find the cherry picked stat that fits our opinion. And joining me as he does each and every week, 3 times a week now during the season, when you count our Matchup Lab show over at the Sports Affiliation, he is a real professor of biology. He is the fantasy professor who really knows his way around the data. It is John Bush. And John, week 10 coming up seems fitting because I'm showing 10 running backs and 10 wide receivers listed as questionable here as we tape on a Wednesday afternoon.
And some quarterbacks. Stroud is on IR, and Murray, I think, or no, Stroud, I don't think is playing, and Murray is on IR, something like that. Anyway, there's some questionable quarterbacks.
Yep.
So we're having to juggle in this week. Uh, Yeah, and
And
Tucker Craft. So I'm having to
oh,
really hunt and peck and shift around here. I'll let the readers know that people like Friarmouth is gaining interest. Tyler Higbee this week. I mean, I'm looking for anybody's that has a chance this week, Dennis. And Jawan Johnson at New Orleans with Shaheed being
yes.
dealt, might pick up a target or two. So there are, I don't know if you're still able to trade or whatnot, but those might be some grabs, this week. I don't know if there's some others, but those are, I'm assuming the usual suspects are not available, uh, you know, for tight
Yeah,
ends.
it's
So,
it's getting lean in the tight end market, but this is where sort of my strategy all season in FPPC, and of course it's tight end premium scoring, so they sometimes come into play more often as a flex play than in leagues that don't have premium scoring. But my strategy all season, Professor, was to
mhm.
make sure I had two healthy tight ends with different bye weeks.
Right.
So if Kittle went down with an injury, I added another tight end. Already had a backup to Kittle, but I added another tight end. If I lost Brenton Strange to IR, well, I didn't get rid of him off my roster in FPPC. He's still staying there because he should come back for the end of the season, but I added another tight end. Thankfully, the guys that I added were Gadsden and Loveland before they became a hot topic, and that has helped out considerably. But there are a couple of interesting sort of dart throw types. I did also grab some AJ Barner, which has worked out very nicely. But
Nice.
there are a couple of dart throw types that I would say are out there right now. If I was really desperate, might take a shot at Gunnar Helm from Tennessee. I
Yeah.
know that offense has been horrible. They're on bye this week, so he won't help you this week. But that's a young player, Arroyo with Seattle, even though Barner's getting the majority of the snaps. Arroyo is making some big plays. So he's got that potential to get you some points. So there are a couple of guys out there. I've even grabbed a couple of Austin Hooper shares
Yeah.
and hoping for,
Well, like I
he's
said,
very,
Pittsburgh has been using Washington and Friarmouth.
yes,
So I
yes.
think those are, if you need, I would prioritize Friarmouth over Washington, but I would put both of those in my tight end grabs besides some of the ones you just brought up.
Yeah, and again, folks, these are emergency starts we're
Oh yeah,
talking
these
about.
are
These are
not
not
my tight
guys.
end one for the rest of the season.
No,
These
no.
would
But
be
this show,
streaming. Yeah. I mean, if you lost
but
Kraft like me, you got to have something out there.
yeah, and this is the time of the year that I think it's tougher to lose somebody because
Yep.
if you lose somebody in the first 3 weeks, there's always 3 or 4 players at each position that we quote unquote missed on, that are on waivers in much higher percentages. I mean, up until last week, Gadsden was available in 60% of FPPC leagues, even though he was starting to break out with some good weeks. It was
Mhm.
like people weren't believing it, because we've been burned too often by that 1 week wonder. But the difference between his 1 week wonder and even Loveland's big week this past week, it wasn't just 1 or 2 big plays. These guys are getting 7 or 8 targets on a good week. That's unbelievable volume. If I get over 4 targets from my tight ends that are, again, not my top tight ends here, I'm talking the guys that I'm looking to go shopping as an emergency play. If they're consistently over 4 targets, I'm okay with those guys. They're gonna be they're gonna be better than taking a shot on a guy who's only getting 1 target. Then you're hoping it's just a red zone target and a touchdown.
Right.
But some of these guys are getting 4 or 5 targets. And when I look at a young tight end whose playing time is increasing and his target number is increasing, and I don't like to look so much at target share. I like to look at minimum number of targets. I want 5 targets from a wide receiver. I want 3 or more from a tight end. And if I see that consistently, I see that more weeks than not. And again, depends on how desperate you are at tight end. It also depends on the time of the year because we always miss on 3 or 4 players. So
Yes.
early in the season, when you have an injury, it's so much easier than replace somebody than week 10.
The I'm having to, like I said, tight ends. I've got some wide receiver issues. Uh, loaded up on Philly, and let's see who else. No, Philly's back. Cincinnati, yeah, and some that are on bye. So it's pretty lean out there on wide receivers. The good news is you can find a 9 point guy out there with matchups this week. So that's not as much a priority, but trying to find a running back. The only running back that I can see is Rodriguez in Washington this week. Uh, and so I just, I don't know if that's Dennis in your FFPC, but he's out there in a lot. And I will give you a preview that if you look at our home away passing, rushing, Washington figures to rush a lot this week, at least attempt to, until the game maybe gets out of hand. So it's pointing to Bill, and it's pointing to the Rodriguez as possibilities if you need some people this week. So I will hint that I am looking at Rodriguez as part of my acquisitions in my acquisition budget this week, Dennis. That's the only one that really, uh, you know, uh, got my attention, assuming the usual suspects are gone.
Yeah, and those usual suspects
Yeah,
are coming few and far between now, but every once in a while I'll find a league where I'll be amazed. at
Yeah.
who was dropped and who is available. Picked up some Kareem Hunt, and I know he didn't produce a huge game, but he got the volume, and that's all you can hope for when you're picking somebody up as an emergency play during bye and injury week issues. If you get the volume, like, be happy. You were right on the volume. You're not always going to be right on the volume and right on the points. But if you're right on the volume, that's the first step to being right on the points. And you can never gauge, especially right now with Washington, you got three-headed monster at running back with Bill, Rodriguez, and McNichols, who's getting a lot of play in the passing game.
Yeah.
So, but they're not consistent. It's not like, oh, this is my passing down guy, this is my short yardage guy. They're mixing and matching, and I haven't figured out a pattern to it yet. When I look at the logs, because on Mondays, for instance, after a weekend of football, I already watched a lot of Red Zone. I watched a few games, so I saw, a lot of the details, as they're coming by your screen. But I'll go into some of the games that I was not as, bought into, watching. And I'll look at the box score, but I'll also look at the game log and see it. Was there a guy that came on late? Was there a tendency? If you see 2nd and 12, was the same back involved, when he was out there? And that sometimes will give you an idea. When it comes to Washington, I haven't seen a pattern yet. I'm sure there's one there. I'm sure that the coach and the offensive coordinator know what the heck they're doing, but it hasn't shown up in a pattern yet. And sometimes it doesn't, because if the player is on the field in a obvious passing down situation when they're behind the sticks, 2nd and 15, 3rd and 17, sometimes that particular player is on the field, but he's not involved directly in the play. So it doesn't even show up in the game log sometimes.
Right.
And it doesn't show up in the snap data sometimes. You can't tell from the snap data who is on for different circumstances. You can only pick that up if you're watching the game and you're taking occasional notes, if you got a memory like mine. But when it's a three-headed split,
Well,
that's
I
about
didn't say it was fun.
no. But that's the key is if you find those situations, they pay off, because instead of getting a 0, if I only got 4 or 5 points,
Right.
that can be a big deal in FPPC by the end of the season. If you
Right.
pick up
So,
5,
yeah, go ahead. I'm just looking at my
no,
data here.
if I pick up 5 free points a week,
Yeah.
by subbing the right emergency guy in or making the right play between 2 running backs, if all I do is make 5 points a game,
Right.
that's 70 points in the regular season. That can be the difference between you finishing 1st or 4th, or 4th and 8th. I mean, it can keep you out of the playoffs, or it can put you into the playoffs if you're successful with those 4 or 5 point games. We're not happy that we just got 4 points, but it's better than nothing. And that's sometimes the alternative that you have in fantasy football.
So I thought I'd go ahead and show you. I started this last week, Dennis, just to start having a record to us to test. So you're saying, well, how come you hadn't been doing it? Well, I just didn't think of it quite this way, and now it is this way. So this is me looking at home away attempts for rushing and passing based on whether the team, what they've been doing and how they've been doing relative to home or away. And Washington this week by far is the highest in scaled rushing level predictions for week 10. I haven't tested this. I have no clue if it's real or Memorex, but at this point, since I can kind of get this data fairly quickly, it might as well grab it, Dennis, and we'll test it off season. But I had last week and I hadn't even had time to see if it was real. There's Rodriguez, etc., and Bill, and I set Bill last week. I may be playing not all my Bill shares, but I may lean into this a little bit. I'm worried about Tyrone Tracy. That's at the bottom, and even
Oh yeah. Yeah.
now Bijan with Atlanta's number two. Again, these stats are over the whole season. These stats are not, they're just rushing. They're not a running back who can catch 5 passes. So
Right.
it's not a fatal flaw, Dennis, but I don't remember Tracy being that with the dart. I mean, if anything's rushing, it's the quarterback. And I think that's cutting into Tracy's potential. And so to me, I would play Bill over him without, assuming that's my final choice and I have nobody else to consider. That's how I would look. And Vegas and the Jets and Brees Hall and Cleveland. And the top are Jonathan Taylor, number 2. Houston, maybe Woody Marks comes back this week, Dennis. Harvey or Dobbins, they kind of cancel each other.
Oh,
Tampa
yeah.
Bay, though, if we could ever get Bucky back, this would be a great week to do it, but I don't think he practiced. And then the Chargers have a little bit. So you can see, and then ETN and Jacksonville's right off that. They're kind of in between. So this may be a new way to help us. I may need to track first by quarters, because if the game gets out of hand, say Washington just gets blown out, this may be irrelevant. This but if I use the metrics, say the first half rushing, versus and how I would do the test, Dennis, say I would do the whole game, maybe the first and second half, maybe, and then I would look at the extremes each week and it would sum them up, and then statistically, and then maybe the above average and below. I might even do 4 groups, Dennis, and run those through my stats and see, is this real or Memorex? And I may not have enough data this year, but I'll run what we have, and you and I will have secret stuff, and we'll know, And again, I don't know if it's year to year because I haven't done it this way. In other words, you would almost have to track kind of a strength of season, Dennis, predicted rushing levels. And so imagine having a good quarterback, a good running back that maybe had a tough prediction under this, not just generic defense, but now specifically home away splits and metrics on rushing. And, can we spot somebody that was underappreciated what they did based on their tough, situation? I always thought that was what strength of schedule was leading you to, was finding
Yeah.
those that, so this may be a kind of another way to twist that, but it may be a year or two more of data that I need. And like I said, I'm not even sure what I'm measuring other than rushing attempts. I'd have to test rushing yards too with this just to see. But anyway, I wanted to introduce this. We talked about it last week, but now I'm trying to bring it a little bit more forefront, Dennis. And since we got a little time, let me show you the passing level. Denver, the Giants, Cleveland, the Chargers, Jacksonville, and the Jets. So I noticed right away, if you compared the rushing and passing elements, if you combined or averaged the scale numbers, maybe that, I mean, look at Jacksonville was like sixth, and now its passing is like fifth. So I don't know if they're favored this week. I guess we can look. Is Jacksonville favored this week? And they're not. But so we might be able to get some betting side of this. But notice Houston is even more passing. But and was Houston? Let's see. Houston was
Well,
rushing.
and
Oh, that was
that line is
rushing
actually, yeah,
in
and that
Houston.
line is just flipped. That line is flipped with Stroud out. So
Oh,
now Jacksonville is a 1 point favorite. So that's
well,
been a
I
big,
can
big
see.
change.
Yeah, and Houston is predicted to do more rushing and passing. But again, if Jacksonville gets ahead. So anyway, this line, folks, was built on having Stroud in. So that's interesting, Dennis. So a kind of thing where I can test betting props and these kind of things. I need interns, Dennis. I got so much to visualize these predictive metrics here. But anyway, that's what I'm doing here, Dennis, this week. Giants are predicted, like I said, to be the worst rushers, but the high passers. So, what happens if a team is skewed like that? What does that mean for you versus a team that's more balanced? You see, look at Jacksonville. I would call them balanced. They're here and they're there. And if did both the metrics and averaged them, they should have a really nice grand average of passing and rushing. And I haven't done that metric. See, I could do another chart looking at the balance of a team. I don't know if anybody's ever has anybody gone deep into balance, predicted balance for the
Uh,
team? I
I've
don't
seen
know.
some people mention, you know, expected game scripts being skewed because of one factor or another, usually a
Yeah.
strong secondary or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've ever seen that pay off consistently.
Again,
And
Dennis, that's the thing with our test. We don't know, folks. If I knew, then I'd be probably wouldn't even show you if it's that.
yeah, but yeah,
Anyway, so I'm gonna let you comment on what I just showed you, and maybe you can help me design more testing on this.
yeah, so here's a couple of things. First of all, when it comes to you had mentioned, oh, if team A gets way behind or way ahead,
Yeah, this could flip.
well, yeah, it could flip, but that's where the Vegas point spreads, I think, come into play. Because
Mhm.
if we're looking at a game that is less than 4 points
Mhm.
for the odds makers,
Mhm.
we're looking at a close game. Then I don't try to predict a game script. I just figure it's going to be living up to what we've seen over the course of the whole season from the
Right.
team. If it's really skewed one way or the other, the teams are, 14-point
Right.
favorite or 14-point dog,
Right.
I react a little bit different. I don't really particularly like to lean into the running backs on a 14-point dog. Because the game script will probably turn against them, especially if they have a weak defense and that they're
But
going
I've never
against a good
tested that,
offense.
so I don't
But I've never
know.
tested. No, no, and a lot of things like this that you're dabbling into are such finite stats. There's not enough
Nope.
data
Nope.
to clear that significance hurdle.
Not now.
But that doesn't mean the data isn't important.
No.
Okay. And I still believe that any of these stats that you're looking at, whether it's power rankings, whether it's anything with the scaled volume like this, the tendencies of a team,
right?
If you were at either of the extremes, that data is more powerful than if you're in the muddy middle.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the muddy middle,
I always approach that, Dennis. That was early on in stats. In biology, probably in weather, any kind of phenomenon.
Oh yeah.
Those extreme situations are probably telling you different things and are stressing the system, and you see what's really being stressed. I'm sure in weather, you start looking at extreme weather events, and you're probably looking at variables that most of the time are probably within don't really matter too much one way or the other, but under extreme situations, they skewed, and all of a sudden, in other words, the effect is not double. It could be exponential, Dennis. That's the thing with any phenomenon. People think, oh, it gets double more. It could be log scale. It could be just crazy.
Yeah. In meteorology, there was a forecast that we did for the mountain states called a high-based CB forecast, using data from the surface and aloft. And if the index was in a certain window, that was bad news. Now, if it was too high, then that wasn't as significant, So, for instance, it had to cross 40 to be considered an active event. Once it passed 60, it really didn't go up anymore. It actually went down. It was just one of those weird oddities with the stats. But if you were like 56 on this scale, it was time to worry. Like that was automatic, get the warning out and really stress the warning, because those could lead to severe wind shear events that, and I saw one in Colorado Springs that took a plane right out of the sky, like instant plane crash, not a doggone thing that the pilot could do, because he just hit this downward force at the wrong time. It was a freak event, and I'll never forget it, because we're all, interviewed by the attorneys and whatnot. What were you doing that day? Type of deal. But, when we see an index like that, we had a warning out, and we had a warning out early because we knew it was a bad situation. We did all the briefing. We really pounded on this, and there was still an accident, because you're just not going to stop flying, because the chance of this happening is small. But if you know it's a potential, you fly the plane different.
Right.
And that's how you usually avoid the trouble. But this similar thing here in fantasy football, if I see a high value, that's a place that I'm going to go shopping. So if I see Tampa Bay, for instance, with a high rushing value, and I see that they're likely to have an edge in this game, because they're either going up against a weak defense, or they're, if I'm expecting them to be ahead, and I see this index in a positive, and I see Bucky out, I'm looking for Sean Tucker.
Yeah.
In addition to starting Rachaad White. So that's how you got to react to this data. Is, yes, not statistically significant yet.
Good enough yet to even look.
But there's something here that needs our attention. And again, we're not benching
Nope.
a stud in the red to, I'm not going to get rid of somebody in the red. I'm not going to bench. In this case, we're looking at passing.
I'm not
I'm
going to
not going
bench
to,
Olave
I'm not
because
benching, I'm not benching Stafford and Nakua and Adams because
no,
the Rams are in the red.
yeah, and Olave
But
I'm playing too. New
correct.
Orleans is
But if
down
I,
there.
but if I see Denver at the top of the list,
Boy,
that's the week
that
I'm playing Troy Franklin instead of having
or
him sit on my
something
bench.
like
That's the week that,
Ingram. If you need some craft help,
yes,
maybe Ingram is out there,
yes,
or on your
yes.
bench, maybe this is, you might get you 10 points or a touchdown, if you get lucky, that kind of thing. And the Giants,
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
yes.
Yeah,
So no, so if your team is in that magic level,
yeah,
if they're there, then all of a sudden guys that you wouldn't even have considered
right,
starting
right.
at at different positions, all of a sudden you're looking at them a little bit closer.
Yeah,
Um, for instance, if I'm in a situation where Miami Dolphins are going to get more a higher passing
so it looks
output,
like, yeah,
I might take a chance on Greg Dulcich at tight end
yes,
as an emergency fill-in play
yeah,
because he got some volume
yeah,
in the passing game the last time they passed a lot. So those are the kinds of edges that you got to look at for this data. And if you see a team in the positive and you're hungry for points, I mean, you're looking for any edge at this point. It's no different than seeing a class advantage in horse racing
no,
with a horse that's just not performing well.
right,
But the last time he was in this class, he won by 7 lengths.
right,
So that's the way will use this data is I won't wait until it's been 100% tested and certified and statistically significant. No, I'm not going to wait for that. I'm obviously going to be excited if it happens, but in the meantime, I'm factoring this data into my tough decisions. The more finite you get with this data, the more you're using it for your finite decisions because you're already stumped. Like you're already searching. You're already, I just lost Kraft and I got Strange as my other tight end and he's still out. What do I do? Well, with Miami in the positive, Dulcich is available. I might take a shot at him. I might take a shot at Higgins for Arizona. Even though Trey McBride is the top tight end, Higgins is getting some play. So those are the kinds of decision making, that I'll come into play. Mason Taylor this week for the Jets is a good example. He's
there's your
still
one.
available.
I'd
So
I'd
he's
collect
there.
him.
Yeah. So that's the way I would use this data is
And
I
I'll
would
have
look and
hard
see if
copy
guys were available.
for people if they want to, they can use this for their waivers this week. I'll try to get it out at least by, I don't know if I can get it tonight, I will, if not tomorrow. So you may, we have a
Yeah.
Saturday
Eh,
waiver. So
Yeah.
anyway,
And
and
and,
so
and
Dennis,
the more
go ahead.
no, the more desperate you are,
Yeah, the more desperate.
like you're in a situation where you're searching.
I mean, if you
You
lost
want to
craft
you
like
want to
me, Dennis, it's
oh,
lean out there by this
it's
time in the season. It's
very lean
lean.
out there.
It's lean.
But I'm going to lean into Dulcich for this week. I'll take Higgins from Arizona.
And in fact, because you see, I need some interns that their job is to report to me and say it verbally so that it hits me differently than
Yeah.
looking at the data. I'm telling you, information is handled differently when you look at it and when you hear it
Yes.
and when you think
Yes.
about it.
Yes.
And if I would say what could I do to make myself better, I would almost, figure out one of those text to voice and voice to text programs that I can type something and then let it spit it back out later and listen to it. So read it, type it, and then hear it. If I was playing big money, I'd think I'd have to have some edges like that. I couldn't risk any big money if I wasn't pushing it to the 100th level there. And this week, Dennis, and I'm probably not sure I like my this is my power rankings for the week. We're kind of marching all around here. I probably should have done that. I don't know if that helps or not. I don't know if that's the best background, but anyway, Denver is up there. So Denver, you see, is rushing. Denver is, let's see, is Denver passing? I don't know if they're the worst, but they're not yeah, Denver's pass. So
They're
it
at the
looks
top.
like Denver is
Yep.
rushing and passing, and it's ranked number 4 in power rankings. So you see, Dennis, the more data, the more I can flip in and start looking at the extreme in the power rankings, passing, rushing extremes. So you can start,
It,
getting all that and melding it together and testing.
and then you add the fact that they're at home, which is of certainly good. They're playing a weak team in Las Vegas, and it should be for Denver this time of the year as nice weather-wise as you could ever hope.
Yep.
So those are a lot of things that go into that passing game
Right.
being a little supercharged at the beginning of a game. So I definitely think they're a team worth leaning into here,
Yep.
with the exception, of course, that it's Thursday night football, and we
Yeah.
know how chaotic sometimes that can be.
Yeah.
But for instance, I'll be starting a lot of Bo Nix
Yeah.
this week
So
with Dak out.
let's lean into that, I guess. Denver, Vegas. So I've been talking about them. I didn't know they were playing Thursday. This is an interesting week. We don't have the extreme 55, 53s, but we got 50, 49,
Ooh.
49, 48, 48, 48, and almost 40. We
Ooh.
have 7 games, 47.5 and above. Very Husky like. Not just come back from the groomers like we had last week, but they're gonna be able to go chase lots of squirrels. We got 3 squirrels this week, 36, Dennis, Jets and Cleveland. I know we'll be
Oh.
talking about that in the matchup lab later. That just looks like extra
Oh.
sadness. Does that not look like a 10-7
Oh.
kind of game? That just, I don't know. It sounds like I don't know, defense wise, maybe. I think I am putting Cleveland down. They're available in a few leagues. I'm hunting for them. And I am going into Carolina Jackson this week. Sorry, Carolina and New Orleans as well. So those are some of the streamers this week. But anyway, we have the uh, the Thursday here, 30-12. That's sad. Vegas. I mean,
Mm.
that's yeah. What 9 spread? So Vegas says touchdown. Yeah, almost touchdown and a field goal. 43, 43. So that's a sad total. Denver, it's play them all except Ingram is tough, but Denver's a good D and the kicker's good, and the D is good to stream. But with the passing bias, does that help? I don't know. Maybe the passing bias doesn't help Tidy. I mean, I haven't done the data, but this looks like a heavy passing game, and it looks like rushing. It's like Denver. I don't know if they're predicted to to be rushers. Yep, they're predicted rushing as well. So predicted rushing, they've got a nice DAP, not the greatest. It's nice above average. Look at Vegas, play nobody except the kicker. So they'll get all the way down,
Ooh.
and Vegas says 4 field goals. So there you go. If you're looking for a prop, I might go the kicker for Vegas, 3 field goals. That'd be my line, if I was going to parlay in here.
Wow.
So it looks lean. Denver is improving. Vegas is improving the last 3 weeks compared to the season. People, well,
That's
what does that
brutal.
mean? Well, I didn't
That's
mean to
brutal.
say that they're, you have to worry about them. It just means the last few weeks have been better than the whole crappy season, is what that means. Denver's at home, 22% better, Dennis. Efficiency, look at the rush and the pass. They go so very balanced, and that's what the metrics showed. See, I
Yep.
calculated this and looked at league average for this week, Dennis. That's what the scaling was. So I was looking. And Vegas is away. So if Vegas was at home, it would be different. So now I'm adding Vegas away metrics,
Oof.
31% efficiency
Ooh.
versus 122. And look at the
Whew.
rushing, 15% below average, 8% passing. So, I mean, Vegas is aware of this as well, Dennis. I know that they track this stuff. I don't know if they quite do it like I do, but it just looks, and it's Thursday. I don't think Denver needs 30 points. I would not bet the over under because I think Denver needs about 18, 17 points. That's all they need to win. They should just rush and rush and rush and slow play this. So is Dobbins or Harvey more the rushing type? Whoever that is probably going to
Well,
get a lot more play.
Dobbins, yeah, Dobbins has been getting a lot of rushes, but then Harvey's been getting used when it's a red zone situation. So Dobbins is getting quite a bit of
Well,
yardage between the 20s.
mhm.
And then Harvey is the playmaker when they get down to it. Oh, breaking news from Cleveland.
Uh-oh.
Quinton Judkins
Is out
now off the injury list.
off.
So
So
he
he'll be
is he
playing
is healthy to play, and that's very important.
in a
I've got some
squirrel
shares
game.
of him.
In a squirrel
Yeah,
game.
in a squirrel game, it's not the best of situations. And in this game, I don't know if I've ever seen a 5.13 for the scaled efficiency. That is just horrible.
Yeah, we've had
That's
some
that
negatives over the years.
we have, but I
It's
can't remember the last time we had somebody that was that low
oh,
or
they're bad.
below zero. That's just awful. And the hilarious thing is they're that bad and they are improving.
Yes.
That's scary.
Okay,
That's
so
scary how
Dennis,
bad
the
they were.
improving, I look across the season and get a efficiency metric. Then I get the last 3 weeks efficiency and compare those two, and then compare the league to see who's elevated or not in the last 3 weeks. And Vegas, I would predict, and I don't know this, I would predict that 2 of the 3 Vegas games in the last 3 weeks have been home. That's the
Yep.
only
They were
explanation.
home
I don't
last
know if
week.
that's true,
Yep.
but if
They
that
were they
is
were home and they were home and Bowers had 43 fantasy points
last week,
last week. So
well, look at the
that's
efficiency at home. More
yeah. And
than Denver at home. I mean, it's
they
crazy.
still managed to lose that game to Jacksonville
Yeah,
despite 43 points from fantasy points from Bowers. And that's not even tight end premium, folks. That was
right.
just PPR points. Tight end premium, he was way off the
The
list
chart.
there. Yeah, this game is just this is classic game too, where Thursday night with so many players listed questionable right now, my tendencies are usually to play my Thursday night starters if they're going.
Looks like
Because
Denver's the only ones that I would look at.
Yeah, when I have so much in the questionable category, I'll play more Thursday night if they're healthy. In this case, it would be Dobbins and Harvey. I'm okay with either one of those.
Yep.
I'm okay with starting Troy Franklin,
Sutton,
any of those guys. With Vegas, after Giante and Bowers, I'm not starting anybody. And I'm looking for an excuse not to play Giante. Like, this is how bad Vegas's data is on the road. That's ugly.
Bowers is so much off scale this week.
Oh yeah. He's an automatic start. You don't even think about it. But Giante, I can see a scenario where I wouldn't be starting him this week. And that would hurt you because you spent high draft capital. I only have one share of Giante across all of my fantasy leagues and formats. I might be sitting him this week.
Right. Denver's defense, 116.
Wow.
Yeah, they're
yeah.
So there's a lot of things going against Vegas here. So this would be one I would call in and say, please flex these guys out to another, or just cancel.
Oh.
Personally, I think I ought to cancel, and that way we don't have to stress anybody. Just, we're not going to do this Thursday crap anymore. I know they'll send them to Europe or somewhere. I know we got one of those coming up. They'll
we sure do.
Switch them out. Switch them out. There you go. Or maybe play a Thursday overseas. There you go.
Yeah.
Dennis. Why not really goof it up? In fact, just let them start playing on the plane. Let them play each other on the plane. First quarter on the plane.
They need to consider a running clock in the second half like they do in high school football.
Yeah, they just need to surrender
more than 30 points.
And I
have a slaughter rule.
I hope that Vegas does, but I hope Bowers has a great day. And I just don't see Denver not winning. They're certainly on my pick 'em this week.
No, you got to play Denver. You got to pick them. You'd pick them against this spread. I don't think that's a big enough spread in this game. But I agree with you. I don't think they need to score 30.
I don't think so,
Dennis. It's possible Vegas doesn't get out of the single digits. Like, that's a possibility here. I like the under in this game. And, God, this is an ugly game. This is like,
folks, you hear Dennis trying to talk and he can't. Dennis never is like that. He's flabbergasted at what these metrics are telling him. It's just slapped in the head with a fish. He just doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, and that's the problem here is you look at this and, if this was at Las Vegas,
I think
Denver would still be the favorite. Okay, there's no doubt about that. But at least it would be in play. I'm a little bit surprised that the spread is only 9.5. I would think that this would be a 13, 14-point game if you ever saw one.
See, I don't know. I would love to talk, Dennis, you and I, when we get our interns and are working for ESPN, we'll have them fly us out to Vegas. I want to talk to some odds folks out there, the books, and just, hey, let me ask you some questions. And that'd be one of the questions I would ask is, do you deliberately, in these lopsided games, shrink the spread to try to get more activity going? In other words, we know you're trying to get more action so you can make more money. So maybe the general question, how do you do that? What are the mechanisms? Over under, I understand you can use that mechanism. Spread, what other ways and when do you really skew and mess with all this, Dennis? That would be the
And
question
it's
I would love
surprising.
to hear them say. I don't know what the answers would be.
Yeah, and it's surprising to me when I look at the data of how people are betting this game.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me. 95% are on Denver on the money line. That doesn't
What is
surprise
the
me
money
one
line?
bit.
1,000
The money
minus a
line is
thousand?
minus 513. No, it's just minus 513. So it's not a
Wow.
horrible bet. It's a 1-2 bet.
Oh,
And
wow.
95% are taking it. Okay. 95% are on that bet. But on the line, only 59% are laying those points. And I'm thinking this should be a more than double digit. So I'm actually surprised that 41% are taking Vegas at this number, and they're completely split, 50-50 split on the over under right now.
Right.
Because that's a low number. And that's
Right.
that's an attractive number to pull people onto the over. I don't think this game gets out of the 30s in in over under terms. I I would not be shocked. Would not be shocked at all if this is a 32 point total points scored in this game.
Wow.
Would not surprise me one bit because Vegas has not been a walkover on their defense. Like they've been making some occasional plays. So that might hold Denver down,
Right.
but Denver's defense has been solid. They had that one bad game at home against the Giants,
Right.
which they still pulled out in the end, but the Giants just had their way with them offensively. That's the only bad game that Denver's defense has at home this year. So, man, this one looks like it should point spread, but maybe there is such a thing as looking
Dennis,
past an opponent.
you're probably spending way too much time on this. You're angsting too much. I think it is
Yeah.
what it is, folks. I'm probably not going to, other than my pick'em, I'm probably
Yes.
not, and I'm not betting my whole mortgage on that minus 500 either.
Oh no, no.
That's
I
just
don't.
crazy to do that.
Yeah, I bet one super odds on horse in my life, and I had my dad bet it because I wasn't legal. That was Secretariat, just so I could keep the $2 ticket.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
He was paying 210. Didn't care. I wanted the ticket.
Yeah.
But
Did you
it's
keep the
just a
ticket?
case. I kept the ticket. It's sitting in a box somewhere.
Well, you need to get
Probably
it
is.
framed, Dennis. Get you a picture or put a,
I really should.
you
I
know,
really
I
should.
mean, for your
That's
dad and stuff, that there's some sentimental, you know. I would. Why
yeah, and
not?
I I do carry a winning ticket that I found in my dad's effects after the fact. It was only a
Oh,
$7 winner, but very rare of him not to cash a winning ticket. But I kept it because it had more
well,
sentimental value
sure.
than
But
seven
I would
bucks.
frame some of
But
those, you know.
yeah, I should do that. I should do that. It's
Well,
sitting in a
it's
box
good,
somewhere.
and
I
you
got to
put it in
find
your,
this stuff.
yeah, just good memories, good times. Horse racing, it's frustrating, but I always found the people that I would meet there, it was a camaraderie of horse players because we've all been beat
Yes.
by these damn horses all the time. The jockeys, and where everybody's got a story. Nobody can go to the track and not have good stories,
Oh
So
no. No,
just
there are a lot of characters out at the horse racing track, and it
yeah.
doesn't matter what horse race
But
track
they're
anywhere in the
lovable
world you have
characters.
those.
I think
They
they
are
haven't.
lovable.
Hollywood
Yes.
used to in the 1940s used to make movies, right? The Lemon Drop Kid with Bob Hope,
Yep.
and there
Yep.
was they had a lot of interesting movies. And that, can you imagine making a movie of some of the camaraderie in quotes in fantasy? Some of the analysts, because this week they were, last week, man, the last couple of weeks have been crazy nuts. Some of the real woodpeckers have come out, Dennis, and said crazy stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, and our
Uh,
good
when
friend
when
Michael Reedy, did you read that article? The guy was accusing him some more of being fantasy receipts.
oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
That was
It's hilarious. It's hilarious to see the
so
people that are being
Michael was
accused.
talking to fantasy receipts, and they were like, "Oh, are we talking to ourselves here?" That was a hoot. Of course, I did tell Michael Reedy that that's the reason we were really his friend, because we were trying to stay on his good side so he wouldn't
Yeah.
post our crappy takes. So I'm
We
sure,
we know we
yeah,
know who's really
yeah,
behind
yeah.
that. But
We need to get some
oh yeah, it
shirts.
has been yeah,
Mr.
it has
Reedy,
been
Mr.
funny.
Reedy, the best handicapper we know. Please don't post our takes. If we wore that to the
The
expo, would
fantasy
people
receipts
laugh or not?
kid,
I don't
yeah.
know if they'd laugh or.
Oh, I'm almost after what happened over the weekend, I'm almost afraid to wear anything provocative to the expo. I don't want to
No, don't do
encourage
any
the
of that crazy
knuckleheads.
stuff. Yeah,
Oh my
but that
goodness,
was some
it's been
crazy
crazy.
stuff.
So
It's
anyway, best advice, avoid Thursday night if you can, other than playing your Denver Broncos. Obviously, you're playing Bowers, but boy, if you are in a sad situation where you have to start Geno Smith, and I'm raising my hand because in one dynasty team, because I've got Dak and I've got Patrick Mahomes on bye this week,
yeah,
I have to play Geno. I have already penciled it in as an L, so that's kind of what it is. But
yeah,
anyway, oh, ugly game. We'll get that ugly game taste out of our mouths later
yeah.
on this week
Hmm.
with both our Saturday edition of the
Or is it
Science of
Friday?
Fantasy
Or is
Football
it the
and the
Friday
match on
edition?
over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. Well, we'll be doing it on Friday, but it'll still come out on Saturday. It's
Yep.
all crazy, crazy crackers, folks. We just never know what's going to happen around here. But anyway, head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. I'll have a couple of articles, as I always do, and the professor has his data as well. I'm telling you, folks, when he posts this podcast, even if you just want to do the short version and don't want to listen to the podcast, you need every week to be looking at that post by the professor because it has all the juicy data that you need. Head on over to the site to the sportsaffiliation.com and also like and subscribe to their YouTube page. Tune in to the Matchup Lab this weekend. And of course, come on back here at the end of the week for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks.
I'm glad my disgust for the game showed through. When I
Dennis, you
looked, the
kept
more
going
data I
and
looked at,
going. Look
more
at you.
data I'm looking at going, holy crap, this sucks, man.
Well,
I
we
just,
will have, I will
and watch the
try,
Raiders beat them by 12 now.
yeah,
You know,
I
it's
will
just,
try to start gathering the power rankings and the home away. I'm trying to bring that in and do some, may do a poster on it or something. I don't know, depends on the data. But anyway, if I make the figure, then that means that at least it's there for me to look at, kind of thing, to see what it's all about. So
gotcha.
that's what I'm doing. Not that I felt I had to do it, but it's an excuse to make me do it, to make me do that
Well,
research.
it's it's always interesting when you find new ways of looking at the data to learn how that data can be utilized because
Yep.
I am so convinced, and we have seen it. I We've seen it play out on the season level
Yep.
But on a week to week level, I'm also convinced that you find these edges, more likely to find these edges with what I would term, in air quotes, exotic data. Data that is not the regular stuff. You're going to generate a list of players that is different from the consensus. And good or bad, I like to be going against, I like to go against the consensus. I like to try to beat the consensus because that's where your big edge is. If I just simply go along with the consensus, I'm going to have a median performance.
Right.
But if I guess right, if I'm my educated guess going against the consensus is right, that has a bigger payoff in fantasy football.
I hope so. I'm ready for it to happen. And it was a lean week in
Oh
my
God, it was a
scoring.
miserable week for me.
Yeah, it was lean.
Yeah, I lost two teams out of the top six at FPPC this week.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure I did more
it
than
was
that.
it was bad. I don't think I had a single team that gained points versus seventh place. Like I think I lost ground. Even the teams that are first place,
Mhm.
I gave up some of my advantage.
Yeah.
That's how lean week nine. What week nine might go in the books. I only had 17 wins out of all my sleeper teams.
Yeah.
So it was way below 500 over there. So I think this, and I got chopped in 2 out of 3
Yeah, I'm
guillotine
sorry
leagues,
about your
and
guillotine
it wasn't even
chops.
close. Like it was ugly. Well, if I make it to the final 10, you
Mhm.
start with 18. If I make it to the final 10, I'm pretty damn happy. I'm just starting to understand. I'm really good at avoiding being an early chop. My drafts are good, just not using the waivers as good as I should.
Mhm.
And I need to study that to get a better understanding if I want to get better at the format. But I enjoy the challenge because it's like anything in life. If you just stick with the stuff where you do great, that's
Mhm.
fine. But if you challenge yourself in a format of fantasy football that you're not good at, you can learn a lot of stuff that pays off in other formats of fantasy football. It's amazing how Dynasty has made me a better redraft player, um, and how guillotine leagues I think have made me better at spotting advantages
Right.
and taking chances because I want to have a couple of studly running backs, and I'm looking at these teams going, maybe this I should be doing this more. I might maybe I if go running back to start a one quarterback league, I'm going to do better. I seem to be good at targeting the that second tier of wide receivers.
Right.
The and finding the guys like Ibuka. So I think I can wait a little bit on wide receiver. I mean, obviously, I'm taking whatever the best talent is,
Right.
but with the tiebreaker in guillotine, I was taking the running backs. I had more Saquon Barkley share. I had 2 shares in dynasty or in guillotine versus 1 in all of my redrafts. So pretty high percentage of leaning into the running back look. And I need to see if that's a better approach with my skill set of identifying players. Is that paying off? Would that pay off more? You know, if I rolled the dice and took CMC and followed him up with Barkley or,
Mhm.
you know, somebody like that, or a Jonathan Taylor's another one in the second round. Is that team going to be better consistency wise than a team where I start wide receiver, wide receiver? I don't know. I think having stud running backs really does push the needle. But and with running backs too, the other thing that I have that benefit, if I push the envelope early on running backs, because I'm then drafting so many of them, I still have that insurance policy. If a CMC went down, I would be covered. Um, I I'm kind of wondering if that pays off more. Um, but that's, more research.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely some more research. Okay, so we're doing Friday. Okay, we can do this. If I get a chance, I'm going to go back and work on snaps if I can. I don't know, can't promise it, but that's what I'm gonna
Yeah,
try to
I'll
do.
get
Your other
yeah,
article
I'll
out?
get leader of the pack is almost finished. I've got 25 more players to do one-liners for, and then I'm done. So it's a little over halfway done, and
Yeah,
it
I
should go
will.
pretty quick. I'll get that
I
done.
will. Yeah. Well, if you get to me tomorrow, I'll roll it out and we can have. I'm
Yeah,
posting
it'll either
both
be
places.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'll either be finished today or first thing tomorrow.
Gotcha.
I don't yeah, and then I go back to research, data research. So
Yeah.
but boy, today is or this evening is going to be. I'm
Oh
I
man.
usually spend about an hour
Hmm.
doing waivers for my
Uh,
18.
that's damn good an hour because I've
Yeah,
been putting in a lot more than that.
yeah, 20 teams I usually can go through in a little over an hour.
Hmm.
I believe it's going to take 2 hours this week. There are so many. And now, when I say that, the first thing I do on Tuesday morning
Hmm.
is I shuffle my starting players for the bye weeks and
Right.
injuries.
Right.
So I have an idea where I'm really desperate. And if I have a team
Really
that
desperate.
has an opening, like I don't have anybody on the roster to cover that spot because of injuries and buys,
Right.
I will set up the waiver for that team right away.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons like I said, my Wednesday evening routine takes about an hour. This week I'll start it early because I'll guarantee it'll be a 2 hour journey of doing that. But uh, it's crazy, crazy stuff. But I don't have too many kickers that I'll have to change out this week. But I'll have a lot of defenses to toy with. I'm in that point with some of these. Like if I got New England, I'm very reluctant to drop them because they've been fairly consistent every week. They haven't been, they haven't been bad a single week, and then some weeks they spike. But I like having that safety net of New England. Detroit's another one where they haven't really stuck you too bad. Um, but I'll probably position to have a little bit of Kansas City coming out of bye, and then I can ride them for a few weeks because they got a nice stretch in the second half.
We are still first place in our one of our.
I saw that.
I
I
still
saw
can't
that.
believe that. I mean, we
I,
got so many on IR.
but we got the consistent, like the upside consistency is there every
Yeah.
week. Like we have been, I don't know if there's been that many weeks. I looked at the scores in there. I don't think there's been many weeks where we've been the top dog,
Mhm.
but I don't think we've been out of the top four
Yeah.
most of the season. We have just been super consistent from week to week.
Yeah.
And that, you know, if you look at some of those teams, they'll go 86, then 175. They're
Yeah,
just all over the place. We're just like that consistent putting up a decent total every week, and that's why we've been able to get up to the top.
yeah, I'm
But
looking
that's
at,
that's fun, man. That's been fun to watch that
yeah,
team do well.
yeah, it's we are 34 points ahead of the next cat and
That's
60 points ahead of third place.
that's pretty good. That's
Yeah.
pretty decent for right now.
Well, given we have two quarterbacks on our team, that's crazy business, Dennis.
Yes.
Crazy. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.